expanding more resources to enable our frontline healthcare facilities to respond to bioterrorism attacks, infectious diseases, and natural disasters that may cause mass casualties, the governor cut almost $1.2 million for pandemic flu preparedness. The Attorney General is the state's chief legal officer and is responsible for protecting the public interest of the state and its people. The FY08 budget for the Attorney General contained $5 million for the Illinois Equal Justice Foundation, a group that distributes money to organizations that help lower-income Illinois residents understand their legal rights and resolve their legal problems. This assistance includes paying the salaries of attorneys who work directly with low-income individuals and families, providing basic legal information to the public via the internet, libraries, court-based assistance desks, and offering legal information and advice to callers through legal aid hotlines. The most common cases involve situations of domestic violence, mortgage foreclosures, and evictions. The governor cut this line by $1.5 million, which may not seem like a lot, but it's a 30% reduction in the program. Almost 90% of the foundation's revenues come from this line item in the state budget. This cut will prevent 20,000 families and individuals from being served by these programs. Now let's take a look at state worker headcount levels. This chart shows the total state worker headcount from 1972 through 2004. As you can see, 2004 marked the lowest number of state workers in over 30 years, and the numbers have continued to decrease. As a result, conditions at our correctional facilities are worse in the Midwest when viewed in terms of inmate to staff ratios. In Illinois, there are 3.5 inmates for every frontline staff person, whereas the national average is 2.8. There has been a 20% reduction in the staffing levels at the Department of Juvenile Justice since 2001. This has resulted in increased incidents of violence at our youth correctional facilities. There are currently 781 backlog cases at the state police crime labs waiting for DNA and forensic analysis. Each social worker at DCFS is responsible for more cases than the department's own standards recommend. As a result of inadequate staffing levels, the Howe Developmental Center has lost $30 million in federal support. There are currently more than 800 veterans waiting for a bed at the state's veterans care facilities. And there has been a 40% reduction in the amount of educational programs and services offered at our state parks. Because of these problems, the General Assembly included almost $25 million in the FY08 budget to add 925 new positions. However, it's not coming up. The governor vetoed over $31 million in state worker salary lines, which is a net decrease of almost $6.4 million, which will cause the number of state workers to fall even further. General State Services. The governor cut over $8 million from the Illinois Arts Council, which is a 37% reduction in their programming. The council programs provide funding for things like public radio and television, and bringing Illinois artists into public schools for student workshops. Almost $3.2 million has been cut from the Illinois court systems for programs like the Mandatory Arbitration Program, which speed up the litigation process for civil cases, the Sexually Violent Persons Commitment Program, which helps county governments pay for timely adjudication of cases involving sexually violent people, and the Probation Reimbursement Program, which sets statewide standards for probation services. The governor vetoed $1 million supporting the Illinois Library Systems Act, which provides much-needed financial assistance to the local public libraries throughout the state. This cut is contrary to the governor's position on supporting education, because as we all know, public libraries are a vital part of providing education to our public. More than $800,000 is being cut from the Guardianship and Advocacy Commission, which protects the rights and welfare of the elderly and the disabled. These cuts mean the agency will be forced to lay off 3 employees and delay hiring much-needed caseworkers. Also, because of this cut, the agency must discontinue a program set up to open 6,000 cases this year. The governor also eliminated the youth education program, which provides educational programs to 4-H members. In addition to these programmatic items, the budget contains several projects of local significance. Nearly $200 million was included to provide funding for local projects which could not go forward without our state's assistance. These include projects to enhance public safety, such as fire and police departments, educational programs for both the young and old, infrastructure programs, such as roads, sewers, and water lines, recreational and art programs, and assistance to underfunded health and human services agencies. The governor's veto eliminated many of these projects. The governor has defended his vetoes of these projects. He said, a budget should reflect the priorities of the people who elected us to make their lives better. The Northwest Herald reported that Governor Blagojevich defended his state budget cuts as moral choices meant to help people. The Chicago Tribune reported that spokeswomen for Blagojevich have stoutly yet preposterously denied that there is any political pattern at all to the cuts, or that the governor is motivated by anything other than fiscal responsibility. But what was the real motivation behind the governor's cuts? To understand what the motivation was, we need to review the types of projects he eliminated. Nearly all House Democratic projects were cut. Nearly all Senate Republican projects were cut. However, projects that were not eliminated, all Senate Democratic projects were spared, and all House Republican projects were spared. Also, the projects of the members of the panel that will approve or reject his health care proposal were also spared. While the governor left the House Republican projects untouched, his motivation for doing so is unknown. It was not at the request of any House Republican members. The House Republicans have been explicit about the fact that they oppose the governor's vetoes and are in full support of an override. These are some specific examples of the projects that were eliminated and spared. A bridge repair in Wayne Township, $200,000 for St. Charles Road, $200,000 for St. Charles Road. This is the exact same bridge. One of the projects was cut, one of them was funded. Hospital grants, $150,000 for St. Anthony's Hospital versus $150,000 for St. James Community Hospital. One of the hospital grants was cut, the other one was spared. Sewer and water line repairs, $100,000 for the Village of Port Barrington versus $100,000 for Village of Norwich. Village of Port Barrington was cut, Village of Norwich was not. Art Center, $100,000 for the Kay Dunham Art Center versus $100,000 for Addison Center for the Arts. One project was cut, one was not. Fire department improvements, $50,000 for the Lewistown Fire Protection District versus $50,000 for the Randolph Township. Again, one was cut, one was spared. Let's take a look at bike paths. $50,000 for Hanover Park Village versus $50,000 for the Village of Northbrook. One was cut, one was spared. Road improvements, $200,000 for the Village of Long Road versus the same amount for the City of Troy. One was funded, one was not. ADA accessible playground equipment, $30,000 for the town of Cicero versus a higher amount of $50,000 for the Arlington Heights Park District. The higher amount was kept and the lower amount was cut. Security cameras, again, $25,000 for CPS Uplift School. A higher amount of $30,000 for Liberty High School. The lower amount was cut. After school programs, $25,000 for Neighborhood Methodist versus $25,000 for Friendship House Christian. Neighborhood Methodist was cut, Friendship House Christian was not. And local government building repairs, $200,000 for the Lanark Public Library versus $200,000 for the Village of Southern View. Public Library program was cut, Village of Southern View was not. These are just a few examples of the inconsistencies in the governor's decision to eliminate or spare projects. There are many, many more examples of worthy projects slashed by the governor's veto pen, while similar or even identical projects were spared. The only difference is from the caucus from which the project was sponsored.